Rain poured over Crestfield High as a black car rolled up to the gate. The students milling about turned their heads. A new face was arriving. The girl who stepped out didn't look like much at first glance. Her name was Lena Vale, 17, quiet, slim, and carried an air that was both graceful and unreadable. Her brown eyes seemed calm, yet deep enough to hold storms no one could see. She wore a simple hoodie, jeans, and carried a faded backpack that had seen better days. She didn't smile, didn't make eye contact, just walked inside the gate as if she had no intention of being noticed. But at Crestfield High, the quiet ones never stayed invisible for long, especially when the wolves were watching, a group of boys who ruled the halls with laughter that could slice through courage. Their leader, Troy Henders, was the kind of guy who thought cruelty was confidence. Broad shoulders, slick hair, and an ego as heavy as his father's bank account. His sidekicks, Ryan and Cole, followed him like shadows, ready to humiliate anyone who made the mistake of being different. That morning, Lena took her seat in the back of the class. The whispers started immediately. "She's the transfer from Eastvale, heard she got expelled." "No, I heard her family's broke. Look at her clothes, thrift store special." But Lena ignored it all. She simply opened her notebook and began sketching. Precise, fast, almost rhythmic lines. The teacher, Mrs. Cortez, noticed the focus in her eyes but said nothing. At lunch, things began to shift. Lena sat alone, unbothered, eating quietly while the cafeteria buzzed with chaos. A tray suddenly slammed down across from her. Troy grinned. "You the new girl?" he asked, voice dripping with mock friendliness. She nodded once. "Yeah. Cool, welcome to Crestfield," he said, but before she could reply, he flicked a grape at her face. Ryan and Cole laughed. "Oops," Troy smirked. "Guess my aim's bad." Lena just wiped the grape juice off her cheek and said softly, "No, your manners are." The laughter stopped for a second. Troy's grin faded into something darker. "What'd you say?" Lena met his gaze for the first time. "You heard me." That was the moment everything began to change. For the next few days they made her life miserable. Notes glued to her locker, trash dumped in her bag. They even tripped her once in the hallway, making her books scatter across the floor. She didn't retaliate. She didn't even look angry. She just picked everything up, silently, and walked away. It only made them bolder. They thought she was weak. They thought she was an easy target. They had no clue what she was hiding. One afternoon, the bell rang after gym class. The locker room emptied except for Lena, who stayed back to tie her shoes. That's when they cornered her. Troy, Ryan, and Cole, grinning like wolves that had trapped prey. The locker room echoed as Troy stepped forward. "You think you can talk back to me, huh? You think you're better than us?" Lena stood slowly. "I never said that." "You didn't have to?" Cole chuckled. "Your face says it all." Ryan leaned closer. "What's with that calm act, huh? You scared?" Lena's hands tightened slightly, but her voice stayed even. "You should leave." That simple line made Troy laugh out loud. "Leave? Or what?" And before she could answer, he suddenly kneed her in the face. The sound cracked through the locker room. Her body hit the wall, then the floor. The boys burst out laughing, until Lena raised her head. A thin line of blood slid from her lip, but her eyes were no longer calm. They were cold, empty, lethal. She stood up slowly, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. Troy smirked, stepping closer. "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do? Cry?" Lena's stance shifted, not visibly aggressive, but precise, balanced. Her left foot slid slightly behind, her shoulders squared. In one sudden motion, faster than they could register, she grabbed Troy's wrist and twisted. A clean, trained movement. The next second he was on his knees, howling as she locked his arm backward. Cole lunged forward. She ducked, swept his legs, and he hit the tiles hard. Ryan froze, unsure what he just saw. Troy tried to get up, shouting, You broke my..." She kicked his leg, forcing him down again. Her voice was ice. "You hurt people because you think no one can hurt you back. But that ends today." Ryan charged at her, throwing a punch, but she sidestepped and drove her elbow into his ribs. The air left his lungs as he crumbled. The locker room fell silent except for groans. Lena took a slow breath, then turned to leave, but stopped. "If I ever see you hurt anyone again," she said, voice low but deadly steady, "you'll wish I hadn't." She walked out, calm, leaving 3 boys sprawled on the floor. Outside, she went straight to the nurse's office, not for her own injury, but to file an incident report. Her tone was controlled, professional. The nurse blinked, confused. Did someone attack you? Lena nodded. It's handled, but they need to learn. By the next morning, the story had spread. She fought them. All three of them. No way. She's like, trained or something. Troy didn't even come to school today. The whispers changed tone, from mockery to fear. In the hallway, people stared, some with awe, some with caution. Lena walked through it all like nothing happened. But one teacher, Mr. Harlan, a former military instructor, stopped her. That wasn't luck, was it? He asked quietly. Lena looked at him and said, No, sir. Where'd you learn that? He asked. My father, she replied. He trained me since I could walk. He nodded slowly. You've got control. But be careful. Control's only real if you keep it. That night at home, Lena opened a small wooden box under her bed. Inside were photographs, her father in military uniform, her mother smiling beside him, a faded medal, a folded letter that read, Stay strong, my girl. The world may break others, but you were built to stand. She smiled faintly, touching the letter. You were right, Dad, she whispered. The next day, things took a darker turn. Troy's older brother, Marcus, a college dropout known for his violent temper, heard about what happened. He wasn't just angry, he was humiliated. No one laid hands on his brother, especially not a girl. He started waiting for her after school. Watching, Lena noticed the car. The black sedan parked a few blocks away. She recognized the same arrogance in his eyes when he followed her walk home, but she didn't react. Not yet. One afternoon, as the sun sank behind the trees, she took a shortcut through the park. Quiet, empty, perfect for trouble. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. Heavy, fast. She turned. Marcus stepped out with two older guys. You're the one who broke my brother's arm, he said, smirking. Guess you think you're tough. Lena sighed softly. I didn't break it. I just taught him a lesson. He grinned wider. Well, now it's my turn to teach you one. The tension in the air thickened. Her eyes flicked between them. Three men, each taller, stronger, but slower. Her pulse stayed calm. Then one of them grabbed her wrist, and in that instant, her training took over. A pivot. A twist, his wrist locked, his body flipped. A knee strike to the second guy's stomach, a swift hook to Marcus's jaw. Everything was motion and control. But this time, something different flashed in her eyes. Not just defense, but resolve. Because she wasn't fighting bullies anymore. She was standing against something bigger. A pattern of cruelty she'd seen too many times before. By the time the police arrived, called by a jogger who'd heard the shouting, Marcus and his friends were on the ground, barely conscious. Lena was sitting calmly on the park bench waiting. She told the officer everything, no lies, no excuses, just truth. As they led the boys away, Marcus glared at her. You'll regret this. Lena looked at him and said quietly, No, you will. When she got home that night, she sat at her desk and opened her father's letter again. The world may break others, but you were built to stand. She read it twice, then whispered, Tomorrow, they'll all know who I really am. And for the first time since she'd arrived at Crestfield, she smiled.